20th, 2022. I call the Oxford Finance Committee meeting to order, being 6 o'clock. It's being recorded by Access Oxford, and I don't think there's anybody else recording at the moment, so that's it. So the first item on the agenda is approval of the April 13th minutes. I'll give everybody a minute to review them. They were quite lengthy, as you recall. We voted on every
roll call.
Every item on the budget by department, by roll call. Does anybody see anything out of order or anything they want to change or that was omitted? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of April 13th.
So moved.
Or a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right. 4 in the affirmative, 1 absent. Or 5 in the affirmative. Yeah, 4. Yeah, 5 and 1 absent. All right. All right, what am I at here? So, we have before us the warrant articles for the May 4th, Wednesday, 7 p.m. at the high school town meeting for FY23. And the first article, I think, has to do with, there's no motion needed. It has to do with any reports, and I don't know of any at this point from any committees. So we don't need to take a motion on that. The second motion on the article, and these are all roll call votes, by the way, would be any bills that are outstanding that have not been encumbered for FY22. Of course, we're still in FY22, so we would want to make a motion so we're on supporting this should and if a bill slipped through that hasn't been caught by the accounting department that hasn't been encumbered for FY22. Currently there are none, but
right now we're passing this one over. But
you want to pass it over? Do you want us to take a vote? So should subsequently.
If there is nothing, it will be passed over, but you can take a vote, I guess, in the event that something comes up between now and then.
That would be my thought. If something that doesn't, you fail to get encumbered, that in FY22 something. Usually,
Any bill that would come up now from fiscal 21.
Would 21.
21.
21, pardon me.
It would have to go to town meeting. Encumbrances were done
Before.
a while back, yes. Yeah.
So,
Okay, so
All right.
in that event, the warrant would be revised in advance of the town
The
meeting?
warrant
or
does
no?
not need to be revised, the motion would be revised.
The motion.
Right now, the motion is to pass it over, but that
Okay.
would change if something came up between now and then.
Just to clarify, thank you.
all right. So you want us to pass it over?
No, you can take a vote.
I would think we'd take a vote just to have it on, we're on record.
I would move to recommend if it's necessary, if the
If
motion is
it's necessary. So we're on record, so we won't have to
Yes.
in the event.
Right.
I would second that, I guess. Yeah.
So Joan recommends we take a roll call on it, in the affirmative, and Ms. Casey seconds it. Any further discussion? If not, roll call.
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Mazeka? Yes.
All right. That takes us to Article 3, to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds an appropriate sum of money to meet the state's share of the cost of the town roadway maintenance and repairs as such amount to be reimbursed by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts as a state highway aid fiscal FY23 Chapter 90 apportionment or act thereupon. So this is sponsored by the town manager. This just goes on record that we accept the Chapter 90 money from the state. And I think that, I don't know, the amount is
$501,458.
$501,458.
Move
Any
to
dis-
recommend.
Move to recommend. Any second?
Second.
Any comment? If none, roll call.
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Mazeka? Yes.
Next, Article 4, to see if the town will vote pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Subchapter 53E and a half, to establish a fiscal year 2022 spending limits for the following revolving funds established in the town in the Oxford General Bylaws, Chapter 73, revolving funds as follows: wiring inspector, $50,000, plumbing inspector fees, $25,000, gas inspector fees, $20,000, building inspector fees, $70,000, Seals and weights measures, 10,000. Utilities, 400,000. Animal control, 50,000. Board of Health, 60,000. Sponsored by the town manager. This puts a cap on those monies that we can spend up to, not exceeding these amounts. Any discussion? If not, do I hear a motion to accept or approve, recommend, I should say?
Move to recommend.
Second?
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Ms. Brick?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Mazeka?
Abstain.
All right, Article 5. This is, where are we at here? Article 5. See if the town will vote to raise by taxation or transfer from available funds the appropriate sum of money for the compensated absentee fund or act thereupon. This, I think, is the $50,000 that we put aside for people that would leave that have earned sick days or whatever, and we have to have monies to pay them. And so this is kind of like in anticipation should those events happen. Any comment? If not, I hear a motion to approve.
I don't think it matters, John, but it's compensated absence fund.
Oh, absence fund, all right, pardon me, I'm
And
sorry.
it's 50,000 from free cash.
And it's 50,000 from free cash.
And primarily it's vacation time that they get paid out.
It's primarily vacation.
Yeah, most
Most
town
of it is.
employees don't get sick time paid
Or
out.
get carried over, yeah, okay.
Okay. So
All right.
moved.
So, all right, second?
Second.
All right, roll call.
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Ms. Brick?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Mazeka?
Yes.
Okay, Article 6, to see if the town will vote to transfer by taxation or transfer from available funds the appropriate sum of money to the stabilization fund for fiscal FY '23 or act thereupon. This is at $250,000. I think we're getting close to the state's recommended percent,
Yep.
which is a little over 2 million, I think is what they're, you take, was it 5%?
5% of your
Yeah.
operating.
So we're there almost
Yeah.
to where we weren't
Right.
years
Well,
ago.
And if we count our capital stabilization towards an overall.
That we
yeah,
would
that
be- we would
together
be there.
would be, yeah, there.
This is
almost.
our rainy day fund.
Yes.
Should it rain. Which, we hope it doesn't. But- So any further discussion? If not, do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, roll call.
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Ms. Brick?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Mazeka?
Yes.
Article 7, to see if the town will vote to raise by taxation or transfer from available funds the appropriate sum of money to the other post-employment benefits OPEB liability trust fund for fiscal year 2023 act or upon. So this is, I think, the 65,000.
From
that
free
we-
cash.
From free cash
Yes.
that Katie has put together, I think, years ago, an actuarial table to get us to the state's mandated addressing the liability at some point
We
after
have
so
a
many
funding
years.
plan so that
We
it
have a
was-
funding
yeah,
plan.
it would-
Every year we fund it to get us to that, what is it, 40 million or whatever?
Well, it'll get us to some portion thereof. I think it's closer to 50 or 60 million right now, the liability. And the idea is to just have a plan so that if we go in front of bonding agencies, they see that we have a plan and we're following it.
We're doing that.
So this is unfunded pension liability.
No, it's not pension, it's other post-employment benefits, so primarily health insurance for retirees. Pension is under the Worcester County
Okay.
Retirement. They have something similar where there's a liability for pensions and we pay that
Pay that.
every year.
That was part of our budget with the retirement fund. That's 7 million, the largest part of our budget that we approved last week. That was in that part of that budget. All right, any other discussion? If not, we'll hear a motion.
So moved.
Hear a second.
Second?
All right, roll call.
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Ms. Brick?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Mazeka?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Article 8, to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds the appropriate, an appropriate sum of money for the purpose of conducting a full statistical reevaluation to meet the constitutional and statutory requirements that assessments are at full or fair cash value, or at least as often as every fifth year. Any vote under this article to take effect upon adoption or act thereupon, sponsored by the town manager. I think the amount is 41,000 and change.
41,000 from free cash, and you may remember asking the assessor about his request was higher than what he was given. This is the difference.
Right, to get the
Because this is only done every
5
5
years.
years,
And
so.
he's gonna need temporary help or outside services for that.
So we don't need to budget it because it's not an every year thing,
Yeah.
and you can't budget a portion thereof because that doesn't carry over, so it's more appropriate to have it from one-time source of free cash.
Every 5 years it comes up, okay. All right, any other discussion? If not, do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, roll call?
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Ms. Frick?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Mr. Zick? Yes.
Article 9, to see if the town will vote to transfer a sum of money from the ambulance receipts reserve for appropriations and the appropriate said amount to the fire and EMS fiscal year 2022 operational budget. Any vote forthwith upon its adoption or their act hereon. All right, I think this is the what, 775,000?
No, it's not, as we don't know how much it's going to be. Right now, they have you probably know better which vehicle it is, that they're having repairs on, so this will bring their budget over what has been appropriated so far for fiscal '22. So, I presented last week what the balance would be available for appropriation,
Yeah.
which was in part the 775,000, 300,000 for the ambulance.
Right.
Or 790,
Right.
300,000 for the ambulance, and then this would be some portion there of the remainder. We'll know as we get closer, because we have not yet received the amount of this bill. So that's the reason to put us in the situation. We haven't had to ask for this in several years now, so, but it's definitely a particular circumstance, so.
This is for the ambulance that when the chief presented, there was
Is it the ambulance?
one of the two ambulances that was in serious,
Yeah, there's something up there, it's getting repairs.
Right, that is that.
It's very expensive, but we don't have the final bill yet.
could be 10, could be 15, could be, yeah. Well, I don't put
Guessing it could
pick
be more
numbers,
than
but
that,
yeah, it
so.
could be. It's substantial.
Right.
All right, any other conversations or comments on this article? So there's no dollar amount to this, so
Not
this is
yet.
just a
We'll know
placeholder,
You'll know before town meeting what the dollar amount is.
okay? All right, do I hear a motion to recommend?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Roll call,
Mr. Yule?
yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Ms. Frick?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Mr. Zick? Yes.
Article 10 is to determine what sums of money the town will raise by taxation or transfer from available funds, the appropriate to defray charges and expenses of the town, including debt and interest for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022 for fiscal year 2023, or act thereupon. So this is our debt. This is, what, $1,398,000?
This is our budget. This is
Budget.
this is the omnibus budget. So yes, it includes debt. I believe they probably have to have that language in there so that folks that are reading this warrant are aware that debt is included within that budget.
And I think the budget with interest, I think it was $1,003,000 something, 398 or something.
It's in the ballpark,
Yeah, it is
but this is the whole budget that you've already,
approved, but that's in that budget, this amount.
well, and the whole thing is.
Oh, then the whole
This is the whole thing.
Debt as well.
Okay.
So this article is for the whole budget that you've all.
Oh, the whole
voted for.
budget, got it.
Yes.
I was thinking just the debt service, okay.
No, I was saying that I think you have to include that language here. It's probably statutory to have that language in here that it's highlighting the debt, but this is the whole budget.
Right.
Okay, gotcha. All right, any other discussion? If not, do I hear a motion to recommend?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Ms. Frick?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Mr. Zick? Yes.
All right. Article 11, determine what sum of money the town will vote to appropriate from the PEG access and the cable-related fund established by the vote of the 2020 annual meeting, Article 13, as authorized by Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53F and 3/4, as amended, to fund PEG access programming as well as a certain other municipal cable-related expenses for fiscal year 2023 or act thereupon. So this is for PEG access to spend the money that we get from Charter or Spectrum.
So we have to appropriate from the special revenue fund for the expenditures in the coming fiscal year, and that's gonna be $150,000
Yeah,
and $3.
And $3, 100.
So she presented the budget to
Right.
you. It's just not included in the regular budget because that would be a transfer. And this way, we're just appropriating from the fund. We're appropriating from the fund, spending from the fund, not transferring it into the
It has
general
nothing to do
fund.
with the levy. It's just simply
It's a
money
separate
that we're
fund.
receiving and then appropriating it accordingly. Okay.
Now, what happens to, if we appropriate the 150,000, and let's say we only use 125, where does that extra 25 go? Does it stay
Stays,
in
yep.
there? Okay,
Yep.
that's what I thought.
It
Thank
can't be used for any other purpose, right?
Right.
It stays
Right,
within that.
Right, it just stays within the fund, so, you know, there could be something we need down the road, and it'll build its own
No,
little
part of this
savings.
150 was to reestablish the recording center over at the recreation. So once that's done, subsequent years should probably be less.
Oh, yeah.
So,
It should be less, and then we'll have
Yeah,
a
once they-
savings that we could appropriate for another purpose down the road, not another purpose, but probably something larger expenditure or related to cable,
it has to be related to
which we
cable.
don't know yet.
Right.
But down the road, it's available.
All right. Do I hear a motion to recommend?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Ms. Brick?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Bezeka?
Yes.
Article 12, to see if the town will vote to raise by taxation or transfer from available funds or borrow and authorize the town treasurer with the approval of the Board of Selectmen to issue note or notes and/or bond or bonds and appropriate a sum of money for the capital outlay program for fiscal year 2023, including any incidental and related expenses or act thereupon. So this is for authorized,
This is the capital program which you
you're, right.
voted on.
Any conversations on recommending this article on that? If none, I hear a motion.
Do we have a
Recommend.
figure on this?
You've already
You
voted it.
voted on that figure,
Oh, okay.
the totality.
So it was the, yeah,
Is that the
point
3,281,432?
that sounds right, yeah. There's
Okay.
About
one-
3 million.
1.5 million in roads, you had the ambulance, you had sewer retaining.
Yep, I just want to make sure it's the same,
for
that I'm
retained
talking the
earnings,
same
right,
thing.
all that.
Yep.
So, motion to recommend,
So moved.
second.
Second.
All in favor? Roll call, here we go.
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Ms. Brick?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Bezeka?
Yes.
Article 13, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to petition the General Court for a special legislation providing the positions of patrolman, sergeant, lieutenant, chief, and after passage of the act, not to be subject to the civil service statute as set forth below. Provide, however, that the General Court may make clerical or editorial changes of form only to the bill, unless the Board of Selectmen approve the amendments to the bill before enactment by the General Court, which are within the scope of the general public objectives of this petition, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen to approve such amendments or act thereupon. This is to get us out of civil service and into,
Correct.
So
This,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just going to do a quick explanation. So the reason why I would ask that the Finance Committee think about this, because it does have financial implications. It's not just a matter of the logistics of being in civil service. Being in civil service does have actually financial implications that are not necessarily always to our benefit. One, the fact that if we remove civil service, it allows the police department to actually actively recruit trained, already educationally trained officers that may not be part of civil service. What we're hoping to do is when you advertise for positions, if somebody is not part of civil service, and most departments have moved away from it, they can't actually be part of our applicant pool. So what happens is we constantly are going into civil service to see whatever the people are thinking about becoming a police officer, and we tend to get completely new recruits. Just to give you an idea of what that costs, that means we have to upfront all of the educational costs with that. I think we had a little bit of a discussion about that in relation to the fire department when I had presented. But just to remind everybody, with a new recruit that comes forward, that may be all we have to select from, because the ones with more experience are not coming to a department with civil service necessarily. So that's why we're really hamstrung in being able to recruit the most educated, the most highly skilled, and the most appropriate, which would mean that they would already have all of the encompassing costs taken care of, and they would come in, you know, as they would for a position. So what happens in terms of cost for a new recruit? The academy itself is about $3,000 and will go up when the state makes it go up. We have to, you know, pay for that training over that period of time, which is about 6 months, which is another $27,000 while they're learning on the job to see if they really want to become a police officer. And then obviously another $3,000 to $4,000 in training. So when you start talking about just to get someone in the door for the first 6 months before they're really actually on the job, we're fronting about $34,000. If we could pick, you know, somebody who has a lot of already experience from another department because they'd like to come here without having to, you know, do a lateral move within civil service because they're not in civil service, that precludes us. So just to give you an idea, there are several other communities around us that have already removed themselves from civil service, and we have another 2 right in our area. I'm told both Leicester and potentially Millbury.
Millbury
that
does
are
have it.
also moving out.
Well, we have it on our town meeting warrant as well, and it's
Potentially,
being,
yeah.
it was on, yeah, so it's on the town meeting warrant, just as this one is here, for the town meeting to vote to get us out of civil service for the same reason, because lateral transfers have to be approved, and if you have civil service, that's your default.
So
Right.
technically, that if I understand it, that means that an officer from Oxford can transfer to another town.
If they
Whereas,
have-
well,
if they have service.
all things being equal, could transfer to another town. But a veteran officer from another town that doesn't have civil service can't transfer into Oxford.
Correct.
I
you
mean, to
have
really break it down to
Right.
the
Well, yeah,
nitty-gritty,
the civil
technically.
service transfer, I mean, you know, one, you have to be going into a position that actually is part of civil service. So it would have to be an opening, but you're correct. You know, that
it
that
really
can
puts
happen
us
if there is
at
an
the
opening and
disadvantage.
there's an accepting institution on the other side, and the person, you know, has already been vetted through that entire process. But there's a little bit more to this, and it's important. This is the one department that isn't treated like all the other department heads, including our fire department, which has, you know, a strong department manager. And, you know, that's one of the things I know the chief is very much in favor of, and a majority of the officers are also looking for that as well. Right now, you know, we're trying to put forward the civil service, and we're going to do it before, but the caveat was that most of the department was not necessarily going to support it unless they also moved for a strong chief form of departmental oversight. And so this is trying to accomplish both of those things. And most communities have to do that because of the fact that the chief is the major person to oversee the budget and the hiring and to make the recommendations as we have it now. But then we go to a politically elected board and say, approve that. You know, the chief and I think all of those officers who are in senior ranks, and many of them underneath, understand that these things go hand in glove. And so, you know, we're just trying to give the chief the same opportunity to lead his department that every other department already has. And that is, you know, eventually there is a checks and a balance because the manager is the form of the checks and the balance for all the departments. And, you know, so this piece of it is there, but it's really the financial component and the future retention and recruitment component is very much at risk here because of the fact that we have civil service. And you're seeing more and more communities just drop it because it really is antithetical to wanting to have a human resource strategy to hire the best, to recruit the best, and to retain the best. And that's what our objective is from a management and administrative perspective. And it's, you know, 1965 it was brought into the town.
It's outlived its usefulness.
It's, you know, and it even older in the Commonwealth. So back then it was trying to prevent political influence, and now it's kind of gone the opposite way because of what people tend to see within hiring practices, so. So I'd ask the committee to make a recommendation. I think the chief and I, because it is a sponsored article between the two of us, would appreciate the understanding the financial implications. And there's even more, because then there's all the other work that goes along with trying to orchestrate the conditional aspects of processing civil service and reporting to civil service. And we'll be out of that, you know, once we can have town meetings approval, so. And you have to go into civil service, you have to exit civil service the same way you went into it. And so we were unique in the sense that we also had it as part of the charter. So we have to actually get out of that. So this eventually has to go to the legislature, and nothing happens until they approve it as well. And that we're not unusual. There are other communities that did that, but that's why we're having to do this. Otherwise, other communities just adopted it without necessarily putting it in their charter.
Based on that, I'd move to recommend.
There is a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Abstain.
Ms. Frick? Yes. Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Mazeka?
Yes.
Okay, Article 14. To see if the town will vote to amend the Oxford zoning bylaw, Chapter 23, marijuana overlay districts, Section 1, by deleting and striking through the text and inserting the bold underlined text as set forth below for the purpose of expanding the boundaries of the marijuana overlay district and to amend the official zoning map of the town of Oxford accordingly and act thereupon, and this is sponsored by the planning board. The only thing I would say, there is a dollar amount attached to this in that I think it was 360 or 330, it was 330 or 360,000 that we woke up one day and found that we had money with the one that's on Main Street, if you will. This is on 56 where there was an adult entertainment site on the corner of 56 and 20. And now we're talking about going down to Pioneer Drive and adding another 50 feet that would then encompass where we would have not only a retail location to replace the adult entertainment that's gone, and we would also have the ability to have a grower, which is not retail. In other words, we can't go in like they do over here, either for medical or recreational purposes and buy. That's strictly it's a site that's guarded with and protected because they grow marijuana there, and it's contained. So it'd be two different facilities, one a growth, and then we're only allowed, what, 10% of our liquor. We're allowed one more retail. So 360 times 2 or somewhere around, there's some money here if this would pass. So that's the only thing I see in this. I know it's sponsored, and we
Well,
usually
actually,
defer
it
to
would,
planning.
once the BVO LLC grow facility actually comes online, it will be much more than that. So it actually has a very important financial implication, and that's already designed to have us be beneficiaries of that through a host agreement that has
Right.
already been inked. But this is really to try to keep the area contained, you know,
Right.
by what I think most town meeting members would like. But it's also recognizing that the boundary really should have been a little bit more encompassing of that contained area.
And we're talking
because it
50
restricts
feet.
us, yeah, we're talking about a small amount that actually would open up the final, I think, favorability of those land parcels so that then we can, you know, continue to have the best, because if we can put a placement of them in the actual area that most people expected, if it's just a matter of tweaking that boundary line, I think that's important.
And I think looking at the full article, it was 50 feet, going from 500 to 550.
Yeah.
Where's Pioneer Drive?
It's
Wait,
right
on
behind where the
56?
adult,
On
if
fif-
you
off
go,
of
if you keep
56?
going on
Off of
56,
up on the left.
go straight, right behind where that adult entertainment building, there's a thing called Pioneer Drive. It's industrial, right in there on the left. That's what we're talking about, going 50 feet further that would then allow not only a retail, because they're reconfiguring Route 20, where the Spencer Bank was, that's going to be a turnaround there. So that whole area is being widened, and so this kind of ties into that effort at some point, that we're not displacing when they do the reconfiguration, the opportunity, business opportunity, and it's cited, I think, in the right area, where we're over here on Main Street. There we're on 56 and 20. It makes more sense, but there's a lot of money here involved.
So I just have two questions, because I'm trying to remember. So I think we had a similar article
Yes.
last year, right?
Yes.
I can't remember if this
And
is
it got voted down.
right.
By a very small margin. Part of the problem was that the moderator, I think it was, as we're getting through the meeting, there were a number of articles that had just kind of happened prior to that, and the town, the Director for Economic Planning and Development had gotten up to actually speak to the article. And the moderator called very quickly for the article, not thinking that it probably was, not going to necessarily be favorable. So the planning board, because they favorably recommended it the last time, they have within their purview as a board that's autonomous to actually recommend an article again at town meeting. If they had not recommended it favorably, then they wouldn't have. So they are asking, to have the chance once again to put it before the public and to hopefully have our director be able to speak on it, and also the planning board members to speak on it, because they did once again recommend it. So,
And
so
I'd
that's
be
why
more
it's
than happy,
before.
and I would welcome anybody else on this committee to speak to it, because we're talking a lot of money here. And I think it's cited correctly. I mean, if I had my druthers, I'd rather have what we have on Main Street on 56 and Route 20.
I mean, I would be a little careful about trying to parse different parts of the
But-
town as
but,
well.
I'm just saying,
But
right there where there's traffic and there's a
lot of opportunity near Route
Well,
20, for
and
sure.
clearly the public, the town's voters had voted it, that they were allowing, this industry to
Yes.
actually come to the town.
Yes.
They had an opportunity to say no to it, and they did
Absolutely.
really narrowly prescribe it in some areas, but I think we're making it work through our, development efforts as best as possible. But this is just a tweaking of that boundary, and I think that in and of itself.
Yeah, we're not going all
should
the way
be-
down 56 here. We're going 50 feet further, that's it.
I only have one more question.
Sure,
I'm
go ahead.
sorry for so many. But remind me if we've also considered potential financial implications from a complaint perspective. For example, like a growing cultivation facility is very smelly, right? So
Yes.
it produces a lot of environmental concern in some respects.
They have to go through a whole process. They were talking about, one of the people that had a petition to be a grower here had already gone through citing with the Department of the State on containment air purification, with the state, with the police chief on fencing and alarm systems, and it didn't require a lot of parking because only people that own a retail establishment can go visit the
Right.
grower and purchase items for his retail organization. So it's not foot traffic. There were a lot of other issues that had to do with waste. It had to do with what are you doing with the, if said plants die, and what the odor was inside as far as the people. There was it was a lengthy meeting that I either attended or viewed. Going back, there's a lot of hoops that they had to go through on a state level. Air purifying, escaping, scrubbing, water was another thing, waste. They had, if they're watering the plants where the runoff was, is it going in the sewer system? It had to be contained and separately. So they had a whole list of, between water, waste, and air purification on this building had to be, and it had to be, I guess these plants are sensitive, and some of them, I don't know. And so therefore, they have to be controlled
Yes.
with temperature and everything. They're very sensitive. They don't like doors opening and closing and drafts going through these. These are contained.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I can, just to
Did I
interrupt.
pretty
So-
much say
No,
something?
you did, but I want to make sure that the committee pays attention to really, it's the financial implications.
Like, yeah, it's money.
The Board of Selectmen are in charge of, actually with myself drafting and legal counsel drafting and working with whoever a preferred developer or business owner who's going to pitch to the state. They have that ability to actually incorporate exactly what we're talking about when we have concerns within a host
Now,
agreement.
we did this,
Yes,
and
we-
it fell
and
through.
I-
That's why I know so much about it, because he.
Well, we fell through with one, but for the cultivator, there were actually a
more
number of things
requirements.
that I had incorporated based on the presentation that the individual company had given. So those are things that are considered, but I just want
Okay,
you
as
to
part of the
realize
host
that
agreement.
then that doesn't mean they automatically can build whatever they want to build.
Right.
Then they go through the other board board that has the jurisdiction over permitting. And then they can also attach other conditional things, and of course, the state has a lot of conditions. So there's a lot of checks and balances here, but for the, you know, the purposes of this committee, it's really
Money.
the financial
Exactly,
implication.
yeah.
But
And that's
but
why I
anytime
asked
you
about the
could,
neighborhood
yeah, please
impact. Yeah.
feel free to come by my office to talk about it further, and I'm always trying to get people to kind of
Focus
stay in their
on-
lanes, you know,
Yeah,
because
stay in
it
our lanes.
becomes difficult if you're thinking about some other things. But I totally get what you're saying, and I would be more than happy to kind of show you through some of that process that we went through.
That sounds great, and I appreciate the explanation,
Yeah, I know you
certainly.
do.
I would
That's-
actually move to recommend based
Thank
on
you.
that, if there's no further
Second.
questions.
Second. All right, roll call.
Thank you, Karina.
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Ms. Brick? Yes. Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Mazeka?
Yes.
Okay, the next article is Article 15, to see if the town will vote to amend the official zoning map for the town of Oxford, including general business GB district land currently in R3 residential district, all land between the French River and Turner Road by a distance of 75 feet as depicted on the plan placed on file in the office of the town clerk or act thereupon, and it's sponsored by the planning board. Not totally sure what this, what maybe.
Financial impact
you
here.
know.
Yeah, well,
And in the
there may be
business.
some economic development impact related to, you know, net tax revenue by being able to provide additional growth and development along, you know, the area that actually they're referencing. But without having that in my hand, you know, for yourselves, if you feel comfortable to defer it to the planning board and they can speak to that economic development and quantify that, then that's fine as well. It's up to you. But the purpose of it is, again, you know, 50 feet for you know, that are considered legal, non-conforming, but allows the potential for commercial development with a special permit from the planning board with respect to those district boundaries. So it's really in an area, again, along Route 20 with the French River Bridge to Turner Road from R3 residential to general business. So they're trying to change the categorization to allow for a little bit more comprehensive in that area. But again, I'm sure there'll be more explanation to that on the town meeting floor.
I would move to defer to the planning board.
Second.
All right, all in favor? Roll call, pardon me.
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Ms. Brick?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Mazeka?
Yes.
To see if Article 16, to see if the town will vote to amend Oxford zoning bylaw, Chapter 2, District Regulations, Section 2.3, Rules for Interpretation of the District Boundaries by deleting Section 2.3.7 in its entirety and inserting in place thereupon. Thereof, the new section, Section 2.3.7, or act thereupon. I'm not sure what this is, again, but, again, I don't know, we want to defer this to the planning board as well?
I would move to defer.
I second that.
All right. All right, roll call.
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Ms. Brick?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Mazeka?
Yes.
And Article 17, to see if the town will vote to amend the Oxford zoning bylaw to add Chapter 26, large-scale battery energy storage systems in the form set forth below, and to further to amend Chapter 6, industrial districts, to add the language in bold italics as set forth below for the purpose of adding the term large-scale battery energy storage systems to the use table of the chapter or act thereupon, sponsored by the planning board. Don't,
Adequate financial assurance for decommissioning. So there's some financial impact that's at least cited within the language.
there's a lot here, there's like 4 pages, I mean,
It's
this
very
is a whole
long. I
new
remember looking at this.
This is for
regulation.
private, though, right? This isn't,
Well, it does mention for public safety.
The only thing I can think of, you know, if you have a solar farm and you want to store some of the energy that isn't being called for, something of that nature on a solar farm. This is large industrial, or unless there's some, I don't know, like an IPG or something that wants to generate electricity and wants to store. I know they have a cogeneration plant there.
So this basically is not necessarily, right now, that there has been some interest, or at least inquiry into our planning department. And right now, this type of use within our, zoning bylaws, actually, in terms of table of use, falls under like miscellaneous. And so there's no detail on how you would actually address a business like this if it were to come to town. Not so dissimilar to the way that's the solar industry when it first came to town. And there were, we were trying to, I wasn't here, but they were trying to piece together how do we deal with an industry that's up and coming. And so this in and of itself is just to provide the detail. We don't have anybody right now. It's to actually put detail in case we do get somebody, that we will have some parameters in which the planning board has that power and authority to have the understanding of what we should be looking for in a business like this. Because if it's a unique type of use and a unique profile for a business, to just say miscellaneous and that's all you have, we want to put in more detail because this is an industry that's coming. It is for, large scale electricity storage. And so having said that, there will be, future I think, attempts, not necessarily just in this town, any community. So it's good to have the actual detail put in ahead of time in case we ever do get someone. So that's all this is doing, is recognizing, oh yeah, we don't have anything that helps protect the town, to ask or to provide the planning board with what to ask in the event we have a unique business like this come to town.
All right. Any other comments, thoughts? You want to defer this, or you want to recommend it?
I would move to defer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Second. All right. Roll call.
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Ms. Frick? Yes. Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Mr. Zeka?
Yes.
Article 18, to see if the town will vote to amend the Oxford General Bylaws, Chapter 43, pond use, by striking the language of Section 4 herein and its entirety and inserting in its place the following language or act thereupon, sponsored by the conservation agent. I guess it has to do with putting in some fines.
Sure. The town meeting has, on two different separate town meetings, had restricted fuel, gas-powered engines on Robinson Pond, Carbuncle, and it's actually also, they have some restrictions on pond usage on Sacarapa. The problem here was that the enforcement piece of that wasn't very clear, and the Conservation Commission wanted clarity, as well as we did, because we did have a couple of instances where we needed to at least educate someone who was operating machinery that had a gas fuel powered motor. And so that's all this is providing that clarity, that it could be the Conservation Commission, the Board of Selectmen, or the Police Department, in being able to approach anybody who is violating that bylaw. So it makes no sense to put a bylaw in and then, well, how do you enforce it? You hope everyone will pay attention to that, but we're also going to be putting up signs and to educate the public that don't know fuel motorized, engines are allowed. So that will help, but there's always the chance that somebody may need to be cited, like we do a lot of other small infractions. That's what would happen. So that's putting it in place and giving the understanding of who can issue. So the police department could issue a ticket. A conservation agent, or, could do that, or Board of Selectmen members could do that. So sort of kind of gives it broad reach. I don't anticipate this will be highly used, but, it's something that we didn't have clarity about. So we got the pieces about restriction done, but, so there is a financial implication in the sense that with enforcement, there's always a cost. Someone's got to go out and do it. Someone's got to, make sure that the person adheres to it. We may get someone who refuses to do that. There may be an appeal process. That all costs money because that involves personnel. So I'd ask that at least we recommend in the sense that it's not necessarily to make money. It's just to be able to handle how the enforcement is done. And because it involves, penalties, I would say there is a financial implication.
And just to clarify, is it only for those ponds that have already
Yes.
been restricted?
Yep,
Okay.
exactly. It's not for the other
Not for the other areas?
No.
And are those ponds already under surveillance, like video surveillance? I know there's been some cameras that have been approved. lately.
Not, no, we have it on Carbuncle, but it's not necessarily for the pond itself, it's just
Okay.
for the building,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Any other questions, comments? If not, do I hear a motion to recommend?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Yule?
Yes?
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Ms. Brick?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Mazeka?
Yes.
All right, Article 19, to see if the town will vote to accept the provision of General Laws, Chapter 40U, Section 1 through 18, for the purpose of enabling the town code enforcement officers to effectively enforce the town bylaws and State Sanitary Code 105, CMR 410, subsequent section, and to amend the Oxford General Bylaws, Chapter 16, Board of Health, by inserting the following new section or act thereupon, sponsored by the building commissioner. And I think that has to do with fines as well.
It does. It actually has to do with the whole process. So what we're finding is there are different ways to do enforcement, and some just get defaulted by the various departments that follow, state sanitary code or the state building code. And there's ways to do that enforcement, but invariably when you're trying to, gain compliance and you're dealing with most of the time local residents and business owners, the process here is if you start the process for compliance, if somebody doesn't want to comply, but yet we have people who are licensed to know that it represents potential public safety or public health dangers, they're licensed and they have to actually, make sure that compliance is there. It invariably winds up in court, so that the local person has to actually get an attorney to show up in district court. District courts don't really like to enforce local bylaws. If it's not the district court, it's a housing court, and those judges up there now are requiring attorneys to accompany anybody who has a case on both sides. So the cost for enforcement is going up, not just for the town, but it's also invariably costly for the local property owners. So what we're trying to propose is sort of turning it a little bit on its head and adopting 40U, which we could have done a long time ago, but it allows that to be brought more in-house with a hearing officer so that people's first set of appeals can take place locally, that they don't have to go out and hire an attorney, but if they choose to do that, it would be, in a setting in which that process would be moved along. And also, in say if we get someone who really just, refuses and abandons their building, and there's all kinds of, issues that really represent public safety and hazards and the desire for enforcement. By bringing it in-house, there's that appeal process, but it also expedites it so that we can gain compliance hopefully more quickly. And if not, there's also the mechanism for recoupment for the town by making recommendations after an exhaustive hearing process and appeal, that instead of waiting for a judge to weigh in or not weigh in, which oftentimes they don't, or a magistrate to do that, which means the town goes through all of these and you may not have resolution. This would allow the town to also do it very similar to a municipal lien and attach it to the asset of the property, and that way eventually we would be able to recoup some of that. So, but it's really better for the town, I believe it's going to be, and our commissioner and our Board of Health agent, all of the enforcement would fall under this branch of process, and I think that would be much better. So I believe we will do better for enforcement, we'll do better for being able to recoup the things that we believe are important in order to make compliance, and I think overall it will save us money because our numbers for legal costs keep going up just for generic kinds of enforcement, because the process through the judicial court system is expensive. And I don't believe it's necessarily the best way to do it anyway, because of the reasons why I kind of already enumerated. So,
Does our town have a municipal hearings officer now, or do we
they
have to?
no, we do have a hearing officer. It just hasn't really been used as this process. You have to adopt this portion of Mass General Law to, not that you can't use a hearing officer for whatever you decide for a local bylaw and the way that you do it, but right now, the hearing officer piece of it will be important going forward. We do, the Al Banfield is considered our hearing officer at the moment, but it's because the way that the process has been used under the different section of Mass General Law that we don't really use that process. But this will allow us, you have to adopt this section of Mass General Law, the 40U, in order to do that much more comprehensively. There's a lot of other steps, and we're not quite there, but we will get there. This is the first piece. You just have to, we adopt a lot of Mass General Law, and then we develop we codify the way that we actually enter into it, and we're gonna use it for the community. But right now, we need to do this piece in order to use that process.
Any other questions? Not, do I hear a motion to recommend?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Yule?
Yes?
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Ms. Frick?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Bezeka?
Yes.
Article 20, to see if the town will vote to amend the general bylaw by repealing section 7 and 11 of chapter 2 of the general bylaw sponsored by a citizen's petition.
Is there financial impact there?
Not that I know, I don't even know what it is. Anybody can speak to it? I guess not.
Mr. Chairman, can we take no action on something like this?
Yeah. I would entertain that at this point.
I mean, there's no explanation here, and I would assume, maybe incorrectly, but I would assume that at the town meeting, that someone is going to
Explain.
explain what's going on here, but I don't feel comfortable either recommending or not recommending something I don't understand.
Yes.
So I move we take no action.
All right,
Second that.
all right, roll call?
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Ms. Frick? Yes. Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Bezeka?
Yes.
Article 21, to see if the town will vote to amend general bylaws by inserting a new chapter after chapter 2 and enumerating later chapters accordingly. Chapter 3, open meetings, again, sponsored by citizens petition. I guess they go hand in hand, so, again, I guess maybe no action at this point.
Yeah.
So you have any
I would be
questions?
concerned that this would conflict with existing open meeting law. I guess I'm not sure I understand.
I don't even know what it is. I mean,
This moment.
This has a financial impact.
Section 4.
Remote participation by the public.
Oh, that is true. Provide a means of remote viewing and remote participation by the public.
So right now, we have remote viewing because cable is live right now as we speak, but they can't participate.
Yeah, and I guess what I'm wondering about is whether or not this would conflict with like the Massachusetts state guideline for the open meeting law.
Yeah, I think that's probably out of our purview though, right?
yeah, that's why I said we should probably not take any
Probably
action on
not
this.
take any action. Yeah, I would recommend.
The only other component to that, in just reading it generally, is that I do believe there would be financial implications with this based on what it's asking to do in terms of coverage, and that is something that we don't have budgeted. So even if the committee were to take no action, I think that's gonna be an important thing to discuss. Because
Understood.
I do believe that there is a financial impact to this, but it's not enumerated, and it's
Yeah,
not clear.
one that we have.
And it's not
We
budgeted,
don't know
in
what it
my,
is.
my opinion, so.
Any other thoughts? Motion to take no action? Or do you want to vote no? Which is it?
Well, if we vote no, it's not able to be brought to the town meeting. is that
No, we're
correct?
just
No,
not
no.
we
recommending.
don't recommend it.
Okay.
We're
Just
not
means
recommending
that
it.
you're
No,
not
they-
recommending it
they're
because
gonna-
you don't understand what the,
Thank
you know, or you believe there's a financial impact, or you don't understand the financial impact, and
That's
therefore you
it.
can't.
Yeah, I would say
I
that,
would be
That's the
comfortable with
language.
that. Yeah, that language of not understanding.
I would recommend that we take no action because of the fact that we need more information and do not understand the implications.
second that.
All right, any other further
No,
discussion
did
on
I
this?
say no action or not recommend?
You meant not recommend it.
I meant not recommend is what I'm trying to say.
Not recommend?
Yeah.
All right, then, do I hear a second on not recommend?
Second.
Okay.
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
We're voting not to recommend, is that what I'm hearing?
Yes,
Okay.
not,
Yes.
Ms. Frick?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Mr. Zeta?
Yes.
Be interesting to hear the explanation from those.
yeah, I think, yeah, I don't understand, fully understand. I don't even want to go there, because I don't get it. That being, I think we've covered.
Yeah, that's what I think.
The only other meeting we have before us, and I want to thank all of you for this gauntlet that we've gone through for FY '23. It's been a lot of meetings, and the last meeting before town meeting will be at 6 o'clock. Town meeting was going to be at Wednesday, May 4th at 7. At the high school. We'll be meeting to approve the minutes of this meeting and anything that should come before us, and I don't anticipate anything on the agenda come before
Probably
us beyond
schedule
that.
another meeting, I think, at that point. We'll schedule a meeting that works with all of your schedules for a transfer from the Finance Committee Reserve Fund for legal fees.
We're going to need a transfer.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll
Okay.
be meeting in advance of the town meeting to discuss.
Well,
that.
we'll be meeting in advance of the town meeting, and one of the things we'll discuss is the next meeting date.
That sounds great.
Because that will be later
Set up a
on.
meeting.
There will be another meeting later on for transfers.
Yes, that's not gonna be before town meeting. We
No,
won't.
no, we'll
We have
just,
to-
we'll set the date,
We'll
whatever
get
works. with your
closer to
calendars.
the end of the
So will
fiscal
be
year,
another
we'll
meeting,
know.
so, okay.
And there could be other items that come up by then, but we'll talk about that, I guess.
Yeah.
then.
All right,
Set a
so
date.
the next meeting is prior to town meeting
Right.
to approve our minutes of tonight's meeting, and that should pretty much, I don't know what else would be on that agenda, other than future meetings
Right.
for
Yes.
transfers.
Right.
Minutes and future meetings.
Meetings. All right.
Sounds
That being
good.
said, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you
Meeting's
so
adjourned.
much.
Thank you.